Hello and welcome to Global Challenges Require Global Solutions. This is the first joint global forum with Hollywood Foreign Press Association and the World Bank to enhance and spur innovative partnerships between the entertainment and development sectors. My name is Arianna Legovine, and I'm the founder and director of DIME, which is the World Bank Development Impact Evaluation Department. Here we innovate through research and experimentation to create opportunities for households to get out of poverty, for children to be educated, for stopping violence against women, and connect people to market and mobilize actions for climate change. We work with the rest of the World Bank to optimize policies, project designs, and investments in developing countries. But in so doing, we must contend with the fact that the lack of education, negative attitudes, or regressive social norms sometimes keep disadvantaged people from progressing. Together, we have, by partnering with Hollywood and many other leaders in the entertainment industry, we have generated evidence on how powerful this tool really is in changing attitudes and behaviors and mobilize social action towards a better world. We have embraced edutainment as the most ancient and really a very powerful tool to educate through the use of entertainment. Together, we have spearheaded vaccination campaigns and HIV prevention. We got girls educated and into schools and combated discrimination and violence against women. We have used the scientific standards of randomized controlled trials to demonstrate that great narratives can teach safe sexual behavior and can cut sexually transmitted disease by half. That gamified apps deliver in local languages to local disadvantaged children can actually teach them to read and write and be numerate. We have used edutainment to convince communities and parents to change their attitudes towards a girls' education, and actually got those parents to register their children for school. By generating the evidence and also making the physical investments on the ground together with the operational arm of the World Bank, we hope to motivate and encourage the entertainment industry to expand their action on education in the world. This industry, we think, has unheard potential. With the great expansion in online and mobile technologies, entertainment media can today literally influence billions of people, something that we would have never imagined in the past. Of course, there were storytelling. Of course, we were always engaging in the narratives. But what we can do today, we were never able to do before. This is really a great incentive for us to work with the entertainment industry and transform the way attitudes, behaviors, and norms contribute to the development process. This joint forum, I think, marks an important milestone in the partnership between the entertainment and development sectors. I'm especially thankful to Ellen Herner, the president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, for having the vision and determination to take this collaboration to the next level. Through the Golden Globe Awards and many other activities of the HFPA has the power to change the incentives for the whole market of entertainment. And this is what we are really hoping to discuss today, how we bring this collaboration to the next level and make it a force to contend with. I will ask Ellen to start us off and walk us through the opportunities and levers, as she sees it, for this partnership to be a real force. The idea, of course, is to fight for a better, more inclusive and just society. She will also introduce our wonderful guest, Hollywood actor, producer, and activist Sharon Stone, who has used her own powerful voice to enhance and promote social change. So Helen, I'm turning to you. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Arianna, for that very, very nice introduction. Let me start. Give me 1 second. I'm starting to share my screen. Perfect. We have such a great panel such a great group of panelists today, and I'm very honored to be here as well. I'm really so thrilled. On behalf of the HFPA and the Golden Globes, we're incredibly happy to partner with the World Bank on these global forums and help serve as a bridge between Hollywood and the developmental community. Let me briefly say the HFPA was founded in 1943 by a group of international journalists who were covering Hollywood, which was a fledgling entertainment industry at the time. These journalists tried to send some glitz and glamour back to their countries, weary from the constant drumbeat of World War II. Since then, the HFPA and the Golden Globes have grown into one of the most recognized award bodies in the world. The Golden Globes are one of the few major awards that recognizes excellence in both television and film, and we're very proud of our history in discovering and recognizing non-English language productions and international talent. That is fueled largely by our membership, which is made up of international journalists from over 55 countries. But besides handing out awards, our core mission is to fund the HFPA's charitable and philanthropic program. Just this week, we handed out 4.5 million in grants to more than 112 organizations, including the support of journalists in Ukraine and Afghanistan. For today's panel discussion, let me set the stage, so to speak. Even with the pandemic shutting theaters down for a year, Hollywood is coming back and aiming to reach the mark it set in 2019 of 36 billion in worldwide box office revenue. And with the growth in streaming offerings worldwide, there's new competition for non-English language content to serve audiences overseas and here in the US. Right now, Hollywood is on track to release about 800 movies per year as it rebuilds from pandemic disruptions. But emerging markets overseas, such as China, are driving a new level of box office revenue and production. You may have heard of Bollywood and now Nollywood, which includes movie production in India and Nigeria. They have fast become the largest production centers outside the US and Europe, with Bollywood producing close to 3,000 movies a year and Nollywood over 2,500 movies. These numbers are stunning, but also show the potential for growth as these markets gain sophistication in production design, special effects, and other areas. These numbers also show the appetite for non-English language programming around the world. For everyone on the call today, from the HFPA standpoint, we hope to start the matchmaking process moving forward. We hope to bring Hollywood creatives together with the international development community to create these impactful and important edutainment programs. In January, the Golden Globes generated more than 4.4 billion impressions on social media platforms, outperforming all other award shows combined, which is why we believe leveraging the Globes with the World Bank will help lead greater awareness about the power of edutainment programming. Hollywood is notorious for the art of the deal. Well, this is a deal we should all make sure gets done to help solve climate change and famine and improve health outcomes, as well as protect diversity, the rights of women, and the oppressed. We're so excited today about today's forum, but we're most excited about how we can use the Golden Globes platform to get this message of cooperative edutainment development out to the rest of the world. And with that, it is my absolute joy and pleasure to introduce our next panelist. She's an incredibly talented actor, producer, and activist, and I'm so proud to say, oh yes, sorry, did I stop sharing the screen? I did, okay, sorry. She's incredibly talented actor, activist, and I'm so proud to say a Golden Globe winner for her role in Martin Scorsese's epic Casino, for which she also received an Academy Award nomination. She has earned an Emmy Award and was named Commander of the Order of Arts and Letters in France, which is a big deal for us Europeans. Her philanthropic work has extended to building schools in Africa, promoting peace in the Middle East, and helping people with HIV and AIDS. It is my pleasure to introduce Sharon Stone.
Hi, it's a great honor to be here. And I've done some various work in this area this year. I was on a panel that was the jury for the World Health Organization's film festival. And that's quite informative for a panel such as this, because we started to see documentaries about disease and illness and that around the world, and how that really affects and impacts filmmaking. And I see that filmmaking can affect all corners of the way we think and the way we feel. One of the key things that I think we have to really understand about the entertainment world is that here in America, it is our second largest taxable export. And if you think about that from the financial aspect, from the banking aspect of what that really, really means, country to country, and then what that means politically, because politically, we are losing all of our arts programs. Politically, our governments are shutting down all of our arts programs, which is in direct conflict with the fact that this raises more money, entertainment raises more money for all of our countries and all of our government's taxes than almost any other revenue that we make. So one of the things that we have to get clear about in all of the countries that we serve is that entertainment is bringing more tax revenue than only one other thing that's happening. And our politicians are trying to crush this venue. And even though I have gone to the Capitol and discussed this with senators, there is no logic in this relationship between entertainment and government. And this is something that we really, really, really need a bridge to, because it does not make sense. We understand that recidivism in prisons is absolutely directly affected by arts programs. When prisoners have arts programs, they don't go back to prison. A direct fact. It's a fact. But the government cancels those arts programs. Are prisons more financially serving the country and the community? Are they more financially rewarding? No. Entertainment is. We know that. But it's more oppressive to put people in prison. So we have to start looking at what is cooperative entertainment development? What does that really mean? And what do we put the grants forward for? And where are our political liaisons? Where are our lobbyists that are helping us with this political giant misunderstanding and this oppression that's coming back and forth? Because frankly, banks work with the government, and they must work with the government for banks to stay afloat. So one of the key things we have to do is get the government in league with the understanding that this is one of our largest taxable resources. This is one of the key elements that we have here, whether you have 800 films a year in Hollywood or 3,000 films a year in India, an incredibly impoverished environment. We need to start to see a cooperative effect between the government and the entertainment community, because it's the only thing that has logic, right? So we have to start figuring out why we are having this freeze. We look at the fact that when I started working on AIDS, there were 9 to 11 million people with AIDS. When I would go and speak, people did not want to listen. They didn't want to hear. Then we had 20 million, 30 million. Then eventually we have 40 million people die of AIDS, right? But we couldn't get people to we have to get an AIDS vaccine. right? We still don't have an AIDS vaccine, right? When we had COVID, immediately we flew into getting a vaccine. But why don't we fly into getting an AIDS vaccine? Why, when we flew into getting an COVID vaccine, didn't we not fly into getting an AIDS vaccine? Because we, as entertainments, have the opportunity to influence what happens. There are, what, 200 people in the Congress and the Senate in my country. In each country, how many people are in government? And you look at how many people are in entertainment and you see how many films come out a year, 800, 2,000, 3,000. The influence that is happening in the entertainment community is greater than the amount of people and influence and policymakers that are happening in government. And yet the resistance from government is far greater, even though the benefits to government are far greater than any resistance. So why aren't we working hand in hand? We have to figure this out. Why are we not working hand in hand? Why, when we have so many, why, when we are beneficial to one another, are we not working hand in hand? Why, when we could, for example, organize these 5013Cs country to country to be working developmentally together through the entertainment group? All these people, Matt Damon is putting in water wells in one country, for example. Why are we not, as an entertainment organization, helping other people organize putting in seeds and lights and Muhammad Yunus's microloans in the same places that those water wells are going in? If we're going to give grants, why aren't we giving them logically, so that all grants go in to repair in a whole way, so that there's a wholeness to the grants that we give, so that we organize our grant giving, so that when we're reparative, we repair in a wholeness. So there's a wholeness in the way that we think about our grant giving and our movement forward, so that when we move forward in a unified way. So that, why isn't government benefiting entertainment working together when we know we're providing these services? When we know we can provide grants, why don't we provide grants that work beneficially with other grants? When we know, like Muhammad Yunus won the Nobel Prize for the microloan, why aren't we bringing microloans in with, say, another organization, the Heifer organization, to bring livestock into a place that's bringing water, into a place that's bringing seeds? Why aren't we bringing all the wholeness in instead of just throwing spaghetti at a wall? I think we have to think about what we do, because we are the one thing, entertainment, that is a global touch. We go beyond policy. We go beyond every other business in the world. I know this specifically because Sharon Stone is like Tampax or Q-tips. It's a word that goes into the Amazon rainforest. It's a word that goes into Dubai. It's a word that goes into Saudi Arabia. It's a word that goes into China. It's a word that goes into Brazil. I'm no longer just, I'm Sharon, but Sharon Stone is a global construct that goes everywhere. And by understanding what happened with my fame, I came to understand what happens by creating a unified perspective. Once I became a global being, I understood that everything is a global reality. And we have the opportunity through entertainment to touch in a global way, and then to heal and impact in a global way. So when we do that, if we do it logically and sensibly, we can actually heal communities in a whole way.
Thank you, Sharon. In fact, this is exactly why we're here for, to understand how we can collaborate in a very cohesive manner and bring unity to our common efforts from the development sectors and the entertainment sector and work together to really affect change in the world. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we are really thankful for you appearing today, but also I hope you continue working with us to sell this message, which is exactly how you framed it. We need to work together, figure out how we make more of the whole than of its component parts. And from our side on the scientific side of development, we are here to document the impacts that the different initiatives have and make it very clear to policymakers and other actors that this is not just entertainment, but it actually contributing to our development objectives, the Sustainable Development Goals and other development objectives we are all working towards. So I'm really, really thankful for you and Helen to start us off. We would like to move now to our next section, and I'm going to introduce a few more people in this panel. I'm going to introduce Victor Orozco, who is a senior economist at Dime, but also he is the lead on edutainment in the World Bank. I'll introduce Paul Katz, who's the founder and CEO of Entertainment Impact, a nonprofit that uses its power for social causes. Edwin Ucoria, African Executive Director of One, which works with social influencers and policy experts to affect global and country policies. Maher Nasser, who's the director of the Outreach Division of the Global Communication Department at the United Nations. Madeline DiNonno, President and CEO of the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media. And finally, Christopher Bailey, the Arts and Health Lead at the World Health Organization. So we have people from all sides, from the entertainment and the development sectors, and we are going to now go into their presentations to share with us their experience and hopefully very illuminating and motivating cases where we can see the collaborations between the development and entertainment sectors in action. First, I'll pass to Victor, who will give us some of the evidence, scientific evidence that we have been generating in collaboration with Hollywood and other entertainers around the world. Victor,
thanks, Ariana. In my presentation, I will make the case that edutainment, the use of entertainment media with development objectives, can work wonders in improving attitudes and behaviors of audiences. High-quality edutainment requires investors to work with professional storytellers, those who know how to immerse audiences in engaging stories, and through formative research to adapt content for target audiences. The world is facing multiple pandemics. Worldwide, there are 1.5 million new HIV infections every year. 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual or physical violence in their lives. 1 in 20 of all deaths of youth are related to alcohol use. These statistics are not that different for the US. Entertainment media is part of the problem by normalizing a lot of these bad behaviors. But media can also be part of the solution. For example, there are more than 5 billion TV viewers. Social media users spend an average of 2.5 hours on these platforms a day. And through stories, us humans make sense of the world. So, can entertainment narratives positively shape beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors of global audiences? Now, good intentions may not be enough. After all, audiences may like and follow more the bad guy of the story. Like with any new vaccine or program, programs need to be evaluated before they are scaled. I will present evidence of randomized controlled trials we are doing in the entertainment hubs of Nigeria, India, and Mexico. These studies follow the same statistical logic of clinical trials, where to study the causal impact that can be fully attributed to a program, we randomize individuals to a treatment or a control group. We partner with academics, governments, development agencies, and the entertainment industry. Our partners are Bollywood and Nollywood celebrities and organizations like the USC Hollywood Health and Society Program and the foundations of MTV, Discovery, and Facebook. Let's start our global tour in Nigeria, the country second to South Africa, with the greatest number of people living with HIV in the world. We evaluated the third season of the television drama MTV Shuga, which in its first 2 seasons had the Golden Globe winner actor Lupita Nyong'o. The study was co-authored with the Economics Nobel Prize Professor Abhijit Banerjee. The show is broadcast in all sub-Saharan countries with an audience of more than 700 million viewers. Professional storytellers wrote these very engaging stories, like the story of Weki, a boy born with HIV who faces countless challenges in his life. For our study, we randomized groups to either watch Shuga or a placebo TV drama. In addition to surveys, we collected objective measures for HIV testing and chlamydia, a sexually transmitted infection. The 3-hour season had impressive impacts after 8 to 10 months. The TV drama alone doubled HIV testing, reduced by half sexual concurrency, reduced by half chlamydia. The TV drama also substantially reduced sexual and physical violence among Shuga viewers. These effects were even larger for viewers who reported greater program immersion and greater identification with characters, mechanisms unique to high-quality edutainment narratives. The results of the MTV Shuga drama were not a fluke. We conducted a meta-analysis that combined 10 high-quality studies of edutainment narratives. Half of the studies took place in the US and the other half in 5 African countries. The meta-analysis showed a decrease across multiple high-risk sexual behaviors. But can edutainment work in adverse settings, like in northern Nigeria, where Sharia law is the law of the land, where over a third of girls are married before turning 15, and most children don't attend primary school, and those few who do learn very little? In northern Nigeria, we tested the program My Better World, which is used in schools, but also broadcasted on TV across multiple African countries. The program, which has won multiple awards, contains inspirational documentaries like that of Fatima, the first female pilot of Kano State in northern Nigeria, and animations of stories to overcome adverse social norms. Now, aspirational stories alone may not be enough to teach a child how to read. So, one of our treatment arms provided a few families with another form of edutainment, gamified apps that teach children to read through learning by playing principles. The combined movies and mobiles intervention was delivered in 5 days and targeted 6 to 9-year-old children and their parents through community events. After a year, the intervention had massive impacts on learning, around 0.50 standard deviations for the target child and their older siblings. We see a decrease of 42% of children not attending school. The increased aspirations also led in treated households to a decrease in underage employment and a decrease of teenage pregnancies. The edutainment EdTech intervention ranked 5th out of 74 educational interventions evaluated in developing countries. Not bad for a 5-day intervention. Let's now move to India, where 1 in 4 married women experienced violence in the last year. Given how prevalent social media is in India, we decided to evaluate an edutainment campaign delivered through Facebook with the goal to reshape attitudes towards gender norms and gender-based violence. We tested a low-dosage campaign, a series of video clips that in total lasted 25 minutes, to mimic traditional social media consumption. We evaluated 2 productions, a TV drama translated as Court of Sex, which takes place in a fake reality courtroom where gender and reproductive health issues are often discussed in a humorous way, and a documentary called We Evolve, which aims to raise awareness about gender-based violence in India. After 1 week, treated users were twice as likely to visit the UN Women website and spend 5 times more time on that website. Treated users also became more progressives on their attitudes related to gender and gender-based violence. Most of these effects dissipated after 4 months, highlighting the importance of reinforcers for low-dosage campaigns. However, users that watched the documentary were 91% more likely to add a banner against gender-based violence in their Facebook profile picture, a public display of their commitment against this pandemic. Our final stop is in Mexico, where we tested an interactive movie designed to prevent teenager addictions. The movie is widely distributed in many movie theaters and middle schools of the country. Unlike other edutainment programs we tested, this movie's plot mostly takes place in a very different setting, in the US in this case, and the educational goal of the movie was explicit. Our Mexico study provides a cautionary tale, with results suggesting that the movie normalized bad behaviors. While the movie increased knowledge about the risks of consuming drugs, it also increased the consumption of alcohol and tobacco among middle schoolers, especially among boys. To conclude, edutainment works wonders across multiple areas when done well. High-quality edutainment is achieved by working with professional storytellers and by adapting content to target audiences through formative research. Innovative partnerships between the entertainment and development sectors are much needed to produce at-scale, high-quality edutainment. And finally, good intentions are not enough. Impact evaluations can help minimize adverse effects, like we saw in Mexico, or maximize the effectiveness of edutainment by testing different formats of complementary interventions, like we saw in Nigeria. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Victor. Very, very clear. So I draw at least two big lessons here. One is the edutainment, in fact, can have transformative impacts. We need to worry about content and dosage and reinforcement of these messages, but we can really achieve a lot through the approach. But also we need to be careful, evaluate, and make sure that the programming is actually what we need for the purpose at hand. So this is great. I'm going to pass it now to Paul. Paul has amazing, wonderful stories to tell around the use of music for capturing youth attention and changing their attitudes and behaviors. So Paul, I'm passing the mic to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association and the World Bank for inviting me, along with these amazing panelists. I'd say that we as a company are very small. There's only 8 of us. And I want to just say that to illustrate that whatever your size, organization, and the number of people, if you're passionate and you engage popular culture for social change, you can make a difference. And so with that, I'm going to share my presentation and kind of go through it. And also thanks to Ms. Stone for the work she's done over decades. So I think that we need to acknowledge that. Okay, so hopefully you can see it. This is the front page of the presentation. Okay, so what do we do? What does Entertain Impact do? We are a social impact agency. We elevate issues that matter, we build coalitions, and we drive movements to advance collective good. On the right, and you can have this presentation after, you'll see some of the campaigns that we have been involved with. And I'm going to go into a few of these stories to show you. So we believe, and I don't think naively, that people are inherently good. It's our job to make them aware of worthwhile causes and empower them to purposeful action. But we want to do it by wrapping up serious subjects and entertaining packages that result in real calls to action, real changes in systems through culture, behavior, and policy. And we think collectively and individually, we can all do our part to achieve that. How do we do it? We leverage the power of popular culture and celebrity to create campaigns that make a difference. International ones, large-scale initiatives, labor unions driving local action, or socially conscious individuals we work with who are exploring ways to give back. We do this through campaigns, creation of the campaigns. We work with public figures meaning an actor, a musician, a movie, whatever it is that's culturally appropriate for the audience that we're working with. And we advise some well-known folk on their philanthropy. One of the campaigns that I think is a good example of the public, private, governmental worlds all coming together is this campaign we did a few years ago for Rotary International, along with UNICEF and the Gates Foundation, to help re-energize the polio campaign, which was, getting a little fatigued, I think we could say. And basically, what we did is we brought 80 different ambassadors around the world together. Some of them were aimed at young women in India to have their babies vaccinated, and there the Bollywood actors like Amitabh Bachchan were involved. Some were for fundraising. So that's where, say, Jackie Chan and Psy from Gangnam Style in South Korea, Jackie's from Taiwan, but Psy's from South Korea, got involved to raise money. What was the impact? Not our impact, but our collective impact of bringing all these parties together was that Rotary raised, actually $200 million, and the international community over $4 billion to help the program, and vaccination programs were increased. That Africa during that period went free of polio, and India the same. So this took place over several decades, but it shows that coming together can make a real difference. So we've decided as a socially entrepreneurial company, we want to work with nonprofits, foundations, NGOs, and purpose-driven businesses. I come from business, I come from Jive Records and also working on movies, but that's our focus. We like this idea of bringing these two worlds together. And our approach is very flexible. We can create campaigns, we can engage well-known figures. We're doing one now for the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, who've just given $3 million in grants for preservation, and especially talking about the Black narrative in history. And so we reach out to various people who have helped us in the past, anyone from John Legend and her to Shonda Rhimes recently. One I want to talk about there's a campaign we have done recently is with the World Health Organization's foundation, newly created only a couple of years ago, and with ELMA Vaccines and Immunization Foundation. This was a wonderful collaborative partnership, and this was to deal with what they call vaccine equity, where certain countries can't get vaccines because the supply at that time wasn't available because the richer countries were basically hogging the supply, I guess we'll call it. And so ELMA put up $1 million as a match. The WHO Foundation put together a campaign we were involved with called Go Give One. You got a vaccine, give one to somebody else. And there was this match, as I say, for $1 million. And basically, you'll see on the right here some of the graphics. But our aim was to raise $1 million, increase the presence of the campaign, because we're usually creating awareness, support, and fundraising, and engage additional partners. We launched that in September of last year with the Global Citizen folks who do these worldwide concerts. This particular one that we were involved with was in Paris, where Elton John from the stage used not just his musical notoriety, but also the fact he'd been working with HIV/AIDS for decades through his foundation and doing wonderful work to announce it. And then in New York on that same day, there was a concert also through Global Citizen where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex supported the call for vaccine equity. That's influencers using their platform to make people aware of possibilities for change. And this was a partnership that was between, as I say, the WHO Foundation, COVAX, which is the distributor for the vaccines, ELMA Vaccines and Immunization, Global Citizen, MasterCard came on board and were incredibly helpful through their foundation, ourselves and the two were Elton and then Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Impact, because we want to measure impact. I'm doing this to make change. And so I want to know if we're actually making a difference, not just for our clients, but for ourselves and my team. And all of this is teamwork. So we collected over $1.6 million in donations, and now it's got much more, but that resulted in an extra over 500,000 vaccines going to low middle income countries. We reached over 1 million social media users. We got over 500,000 video clicks on the content. We also facilitated, I should say we, meaning Freud, the WHO Foundation ourselves, facilitated this paid media partnership with Vice Media, which through the organic traffic allowed donations to rise from 11% to 20% when people visited the page, and that was pretty cool. And obviously we got loads of PR. So I think that was a very successful campaign. We work by immersing ourselves in these particular campaigns. We don't want a lot of clients. We're not like one of these platforms. We're very boutique and bespoke, but we're very research driven, and we're very good at getting the right influencers who are passionate about the projects or the campaigns together, and then executing and measuring. That's kind of our MO. Here's one I'll briefly talk about, which was a campaign that we did with Pixar and Disney on Coco, a movie about a kid that didn't have music in their life. And we brought the Grammy Music Education Coalition, which we were with Elmer part of creating, in as their social impact partner, where music went into a lot of public schools in the US, which didn't have music. And that, as Sharon was saying, music and the arts are things that change lives. That was a very successful campaign, and we had a lot of musicians from all across genres and regions participate. So, as this is our team. As I said, we're small, but we're passionate, and we try and do good work, and our heart is in the right place. So that's my presentation, and I thank you very much indeed.
That's wonderful, Paul. Thank you so much. In fact, I agree with you. We can all make a difference. Just every individual wants to make a difference in this space, and small is not the measure of our impact. So I'm going to now bring in
سوف أشرك الآن.
Sorry, Reem, maybe you should mute. Yeah, I'm going to now ask an old friend and collaborator, Edwin, the Africa Executive Director of One, to take it away.
Thank you, Rana, for this opportunity, and thank you, Victor, for inviting me. I work for the One campaign. Again, I've been a part of DIME for quite some time, since 2012, and leading the work at the One campaign in Africa. We've done several things that goes from edutainment to entertainment to development, and basically looking at the way we can draw the power of celebrity in mobilizing people to take action. Particularly on the African continent, a great deal of mobilization is required. I will be sharing my screen just now, just to share one example of that work that we've done. And the reason why this is particularly important is because it's the latest of all of the things that we've done around COVID, in response to COVID. So this was the kind of headlines we were seeing initially, just when COVID started. The question was, there was a lot of pushback, especially when celebrities got into the business of COVID, because nobody understood it. There was a lot of apprehension about what is this? And when people put their voices into this, it kind of looked like, shut up, you don't know what you're saying. Those kind of, and there's a lot of division in terms of understanding of what COVID was about, a lot of disinformation. And that was the background. But we knew that the people that are following our celebrities, if they have the right information, that's a theory of change. If they got the right content, the right information about COVID, the right understanding, the right ideas about how this is morphing into and impacting people's lives, that could change the narrative, especially in the face of the vaccines when they were developing. So this is what we launched, the Pass the Mic, particularly in partnership with the creative agency Hive. The idea here was to leverage public awareness and engagement to basically prod political action. And because then the biggest response to COVID was very nationalistic, very populist in country. It was difficult to get the whole world to act together because we thought if it was a global pandemic, the action should be global, it should be coordinated. So we have the WHO doing its bit, but different countries were basically trying to focus on their own people. But what we were saying then that the vaccines, or rather the virus does not respect boundaries. So if it still exists anywhere in the world, it will get to every part of the world. So it was important to talk about the vaccines as a globe, but we were not getting that. So the idea here was, how do we get people to press the political class to take the action that they need to take to act collectively? And this is when we launched the Pass the Mic campaign in May 2020. And so what did we get? We got about 42 pairs of talent and experts, talents and experts, about 42 there. In this image that you're seeing here, it's just a rough sketch of the different types of talents and the different experts that we paired together across the world in the US. And when we kind of paired them, it was not to get the talents to talk about COVID. It was to get the talents to hand over their own social media accounts to these experts to speak and dish out the facts about COVID, about the pandemic, and about what needs to happen to get us to the end or to get us out of the pandemic. That's what we did. And then particularly, we also went ahead after the global campaign and the global launch. We went ahead on the African continent, particularly. We targeted experts and talents based on the continent, targeted to the African people because of the huge disinformation that was really across the continent. So even when the vaccines were available, there was a lot of reluctance, a lot of hesitancy, all kinds of information was going on around what the vaccines will do and all of that. So what we did here also was to get local talents within the African continent and experts that are also trusted by Africans to talk about the vaccines and talk about the whole pandemic and what needs to happen. And we also created what we call the Myth or Vax. The Myth or Vax campaign was another social media campaign on TikTok that basically targeted disinformation. So it was either we're trying to show people to identify whether this is a myth or this is a fact. So we called it the Myth or Vax campaign. And the Myth or Vax reached about 104 million people by the analysis we did the last time, and with over 10,000 organic videos that were uploaded by individuals organically in response to the challenge, to the Myth or Vax challenge that we created. And that itself, was quite engaging. So what did we do? Basically, it was to reach and drive engagement and get supporters signups. And what we did basically was to get these conversations going on and on the social media accounts of these celebrities across the world, using graphics, videos, and well curated copy edits. And then we brought all of that into a hub page, did a lot of advertising, put it on different accounts, and this is the impression we got. The numbers were staggering at the end of this. It was amazing. I just don't want to go through all of the numbers, just there for you to see. It was really amazing in terms of the reach, in terms of the following, in terms of the impact, in terms of, because it was for engagement. We really got the engagement. And of course, Pass the Mic got one of the awards by this media agency just after that. And beyond that, again, the Pass the Mic as a brand did not just launch, it has also led to other kinds of brands that are coming, like Share the Mic now. And it has become a part of our tool that we use constantly, especially when the issues are being, the issues are becoming subject to disinformation. When it's a lot of, because of social media and the access to social media, one information that may not be correct, that could really cause social division, launched in the US today, it's in the most remote village in Nigeria tomorrow. And for that, we have it as a tool to really get talent and experts to bring out the right information. And we're trying to make this also something that the government utilizes, for their work. The last bit I want to talk about is that we beyond the Pass the Mic and the Myth or Vax, we also mobilize talents, musicians. Paul Katz, I hear you seriously. We got different artists, about 10 different African artists together in the heat of the pandemic when there was so much despair. We did a song called Stand Together, which became the song, the theme song by the Africa CDC, in basically pushing the right information, not just information, but to build solidarity on the continent and get people to come out of that state of despair, that we can get out of this pandemic. That's how we did that. And I just wanted to share this example with you on the power of edutainment and the power of catalyzing celebrity power to really mobilize people to take action. Thank you very much.
Edwin, this is so exciting. Congratulations. Really, this is pretty amazing. We loved it. You also answered one of my questions in how to make effective use of talent and personalities. How do we actually channel their energy and talent into the direction of informing and educating the world? So thank you so much for that. A good segue into that is Maher Nasser, who is in the Global Communication Department at the United Nations, and they have been attracting personalities and talent to the United Nations for pushing the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other causes. So Maher, we look forward to hear your experience in this area.
Well, thank you, Ariana. Thank you to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association and World Bank for actually inviting us to this opportunity. I think in New York, people look at the United Nations and they see this glass building on First Avenue and they imagine the diplomats inside and what they're doing. The UN is much more than that. The UN is everywhere in the world. We are also in the form of the normative rules that become laws in many countries and regulations that enable us to live in a world that is interconnected with multiple problems and challenges. So how do we communicate that to the world without using the language of the resolutions, which are written in what we call UNEs? And growing up, for me, television was a window into the world. I learned English from television. I went to a school run by the United Nations as a refugee. So for me, my work for the last 10 years sort of brings the two together. It's the opportunity to reach a wider audience other than just the journalists that we talk to and we share stories with. We hold press conferences, we still do all that. But what I have been involved with directly in the last 10 years at the UN is how do we bring the UN and what happens in the UN, the stories from the UN, the concept and the principles to the widest possible audience, not as a direct advertising, not as, you know, this is what we are telling you because we are the United Nations, this is what world leaders have agreed to. No, through soft messaging in a way that is more engaging, that will actually, and most recently, we recognize that the way to really change behavior and change people's minds is through stories. Numbers are important. Of course, for economists like Victor and others, you deal with numbers and you will want to look at the numbers. But if you want to reach the average person and you want to change behavior, we have to go with the storyline, with the humanization of the concept. So we go beyond just actually working with celebrities. That's how the UN started working with entertainment. And UNICEF was the first to work with goodwill ambassadors and using their ability to bring a spotlight on an issue to make it much wider and more global. We have been working with television and film productions to incorporate issues that are on the UN's agenda in their stories. And in a way, if and when there is an item on the UN's agenda or a UN storyline isn't there that it's accurate, it's correct, that we connect them with the right experts. We actually have been to Hollywood several times with Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. We have an initiative called the Creative Community Outreach Initiative, where we offer sort of a film office service. So if you want to do a story that engages or needs filming in a UN setting, we are here to help. We organize discussions and film screenings at the United Nations, whereby a film that we may have cooperated with it or may not, but is about a topic that we are really engaged with globally. And we have the discussion with the director, producers, and others. We have put and placed UN experts in writers' rooms to actually ensure that when a storyline is about, there was a show called Revolution, NBC, J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot, about a post-apocalyptic future, no electricity, etc., etc. And we have worked with the production to ensure that when they talk about refugees, and then we have UNHCR colleagues talking to them about how it is in a refugee camp. When they talk about warlords, they talk about the return of disease in such a world. We bring experts from WHO and experts from other places. So that's what we have been doing a lot of. And we recognize that audiences are diverse. Today, with the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, it touches on every aspect of life. And there is actually interest, a swell of interest in the SDGs. And that has been very useful for us to really find more receptive ears. I remember one of my first trips to Hollywood with the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and we had a meeting with major production producers, writers, and one of them stood up and said, you know, we really try to bring those issues to the shows that we make, but then the people with the money tell us, you're too earnest, this won't sell. And, oh, this doesn't really work for an American audience. Where's the American angle? Because this is where our market is. And I think slowly with the SDGs, it's been more. And of course, we now live in a world which is facing multiple crises. So climate change is no longer a discussion between people who believe in climate change and deniers. Deniers are finding other ways to push it further down the line, either through doubt or deflection or whichever. We have COVID. We have worked a lot on creating better understanding and changing behavior in how people share information. And with that, of course, we relied on our celebrity partners to amplify the messaging further. And we see examples of that all the time. When you go to the UN YouTube channel, you will find that we have, on average, a few thousand views of a certain speech by a certain diplomat, or sometimes it goes up if it's a diplomat from a certain country, large population, a contentious issue, it goes up. But when you have Leonardo DiCaprio, he came and spoke in the Climate Change Summit in 2014. It was the first time that we have like 3.9 million views of a UN YouTube video. And since then, of course, we have had more, especially with BTS. Last year, we had about 70 million views on the UN YouTube, which is the highest we have ever had. So these are the kinds of things that we have been doing, as well as, you know, one of the biggest and most successful collaborations we've had was with Angry Birds. The people saying Angry Birds and the United Nations, well, yes, Angry Birds, because we have started the collaboration with Sony Music, well, Sony Entertainment, and they came to us and saying, we have this film coming up and it's about Angry Birds. How can we work? Because we think we want to be helpful in the issue in the field of sustainability. So the theme was, and they produced many short clips of Angry Birds. They're angry because humans have messed up. You know, we have to sort things out. We have to clean up behind us, less plastic, conserve energy. And then since then, we have had collaborations with the Smurfs, with Peter Rabbit, Hello Kitty, Thomas the Tank Engine. And it's like also, so we're going to the younger generation so that those issues are really reaching to them in a way that is told by storytelling experts, not just us. So we bring the expertise, we bring the issues, but we rely on the storytelling expertise of not just Hollywood, of course. We have worked with Bollywood and other European, and hopefully we haven't yet, but our target is also to work with Nollywood as well. So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Maher. Indeed, very, very interesting. Also, I liked, you know, the successes are really inspiring, but also the constraint that you point to. I'm going to revert that question later to our panel, and specifically people in the entertainment industry, to understand how do we do this right? How do we get the content right? And so that it is both attractive to our market, but also communicative of what we need to communicate. So this is really wonderful. And it's a very good entry point for our next speaker, Madeline Di Nonno, who specializes in looking at content in a very, very detailed fashion. So Madeline is president and CEO of the Gina Davis Institute in Gender in Media. and she will talk to us about gender portrayals in media.
Thank you so much, Ariana. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that in New York City, I am on the traditional lands of the Lenape peoples, past and present, and honor the people who have stewarded it through generations. In fact, the name Manhattan derives from the Lenape word for island, which is Manatee. So each time we say the name Manhattan, remember that we are evoking the memory of the Lenape people. So if the unprecedented challenges of the past few years have taught us anything, it's been about the importance of collaboration, creative ingenuity, and unity to drive systemic change, which is what we're talking about. And when we think about some of those challenges, caregiving is one of the greatest challenges that impacts all of us on a global and a daily basis. So I'm going to talk about how caregiving has played out in TV and how we can work to change the world one story at a time. So let's see if I will be successful in sharing my PowerPoint here. So just give me 1 minute to share my screen and hopefully pull that up. And so, you know, caregiving again impacts all of us. And when we look at, who is a caregiver, caregiving can range from taking care of children, taking care, of a loved one, someone who may be, disabled. And what we did find is that 80% of the caregivers are, female. So the name of the study is How TV Does and Does Not Get Caregiving and Men's Caregiving Correctly. So why do we care about this? Because popular media, as you've heard from all of our presenters, can reinforce what is normalized, can give us social scripts, and also educate us on what to do or who's doing, what. Okay, you have a new baby. Well, now what? What a lot of people are learning how to take care of a baby through what they see, on TV. And what we do see evolving is this evolution from a heteronormative breadwinner model like Ward Cleaver, all the way to male caregivers being nannies, or unstereotypical views like, Uncle Phil. And so, but the reality of caregiving is that 80% of the caregiving is done, by women. 60% of women say that they do much more. 88% of parents agree that, hey, it should be equal, but it's not. And actually fathers say, you know what, I really want to be the dad that I want to be. And, only a quarter, 25% of the fathers say, they do say that there's a lot of barriers to what gets in the way. So there were three primary questions we wanted to ask. Who is a caregiver? Do these portrayals reinforce or subvert common stereotypes? And are male caregivers on TV depicted with tropes? And so we looked at, from 2013 to 2020, the top 10 shows per year in that time period. And actually, it was about 4,000 characters, but out of all those characters, only about 1,000 were actually portrayed as caregivers. And so, who is a caregiver on popular scripted TV? So it's mostly women, it's mostly white, and we do see, some changes there. So over time, we're seeing it change, but it is still pretty much so dominated, by women. And then we do see an increase in more caregivers of color. And again, when you look at, this percentage, you could see that we are seeing some change and increases when it comes to people of color as caregivers. So these are some of the, core questions that we wanted to ask. Female caregivers, and this is the make-believe, do 2 out of 3 caregiving casts. We are seeing male characters do more caregiving, but it's relegated to stereotypically male tasks, such as grilling or fixing the sink. Female caregivers are more likely to be showing more domestic things like laundry and cooking. And female caregivers are more likely to show compassion and empathy. And again, you can see that the caregiving tasks are very gendered in terms of feminized housework, masculine housework, feminized housework being the cooking and the cleaning, and masculinized house work being more, cleaning the yard or the grill, etc. In terms of, moving over time, you do see that it started out being a little more equal, but then in recent times, it's become very, very gendered in terms of feminized caretaking versus masculine caretaking. Now, when it comes to this compassion, it's more likely for the female characters to show emotional connection, love and affection, and support and encouragement. And then in terms of, there are some tropes that we looked at in terms of male caregivers, which I'll explain. There's the apprentice dad, there's the absentee dad, and there's kind of the abusive dad. And that is what we've seen. And the apprentice dad he's bumbling idiot. He's got to be shown how to do everything. He doesn't know how to do a thing. We don't see that many depictions, of violence. But when we do, it's 4 times more likely that it is from a male caregiver. And again, this just shows you in terms of incompetence, in terms of instructed by the partner where they can't even pack a sandwich in a sandwich bag. And then logistics is who's doing the pickup from school, who's doing the meal planning. And again, you see where this is very heavily reliant on the female caregivers. And again, you could see also in terms of emotionally abusive, physically abusive. When we say violent protector, they use it as comic relief, like your daughter's date shows up to take her out and the father's there with a shotgun, at the front door. So that's what we mean by kind of a violent protector. And so, in short, and I just wanted to say this study is on our website. I don't know if somebody can throw a link to our website in the chat, www.cjane.org. But essentially, although it may be funny to show a male caregiver as an apprentice dad, but I think we need to show that equally, for all types, of caregivers. Diversify male caregivers. And then also when male caregivers struggle, show them seeking social support. And I think it's really important that we could show these caregivers accessing resources that they have available, to them. Most households today are dual income. So let's disrupt this male breadwinner, model. And last but not least, caregiving can be invisible. And so we need to make it visible because it is such a critical part of our life. So I will stop sharing my screen and thank you very much.
Thank you, Madeline. This was very, very interesting, both in terms of portrayals and also the trends that don't seem necessarily to go in the right direction all the time. So clearly a very, very interesting piece to reflect on. I'm going to pass it now to Chris Bailey, the Arts and Health Lead at the WHO. WHO has been mentioned a few times today already. Chris, please come in.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ariana. It's a pleasure to be here. I guess the first thing that comes to mind with me is I remember when our arts and health program was first started, and there were some legitimate questions. Why is WHO going into this area more formally? And one colleague actually said, but the arts are merely recreational. And I said, well, listen to that word, recreation. It's about healing. And I think that's one of the messages I'd like to give in the 8 minutes that I have, is that yes, this is about effective messaging on development and health topics to populations. But it's also about the intrinsic healing power of the deep aesthetic engagement as well, regardless of the message that it's carrying. And I think that's an important aspect to what we're talking about here. I also want to point out just up front that the work that we do at WHO, 1/3 of it is really dealing with the global media. The other 2/3 of it are looking at the evidence base for the health benefits of the arts, promoting the use of the arts as a community-based health intervention at the community level. And that can be everything from psychosocial support to refugees, to post-conflict situations in northern Iraq, to COVID response of dealing with feelings of mass grief in Mexico through letter writing. There are many, many different programs that we do. But one of the reasons why we got into a more formal engagement with the global media, it's really quite simple. They reach a lot of people that at the end of the day, when we're talking about public health, when we're talking about global health, if we are limited in our scope, then we're not actually doing our job. We need to reach the most number of people, and media in all of its forms does exactly that. So I think we have to engage them. There are some pitfalls, of course. If you have an unbalanced approach, I think there's a danger of a negative perception that we are elitist, that we're wandering away from our core mission, because at the end of the day, what WHO and the UN and the World Bank are really all about is serving the underserved. And that's an important aspect. Let's take Ms. Stone's collaboration with WHO. She mentioned briefly that she was a juror on our Health for All Film Festival. Well, it was very generous of her to do that, but the benefits of that were multiple. Not only did she bring her expertise in storytelling to help judge this contest to see which of these films were the most effective, the most affecting as well. And of course, lent her brand, as she described it, to promote the festival itself. But the festival was really about independent, local grassroots voices from around the world dealing with their local health issues. And that's the balance that we want to get at, that it's not just celebrity for its own sake or as social marketing, but to give to pass the mic, as our colleague in the one program just said, to use the celebrity to bring the platform to the people who have not been heard, who need to be heard. Perhaps, arguably, the most tremendous success that we've had in this space was at the beginning of the pandemic, when we had the Together at Home concert with Lady Gaga, which she was kind enough to curate for us. That event, the primary purpose of it was at a key point, at an early point in the pandemic, to get across the health messaging of hand sanitation, safe distancing, staying at home, and honoring the healthcare worker. But what was interesting about that event is that it was more than just health messaging. By bringing together artists from all aspects of the arts, film, television, music, and bringing them together in an authentic way, it actually did build a sense of community in a fractured world. It did provide comfort. It did provide an opportunity for people to think about how they themselves in lockdown could express themselves. It was more than just the messaging. There was this other element to it. The WHO definition of mental health, frankly, is not just the absence of mental health, mental illness symptoms or conditions, but asking yourself the question, can I cope with the everyday stresses of life? Can I maximize my abilities? Can I be productive? Can I contribute to a community? And if the answer to all these questions is yes, you have mental health regardless of what diagnosable condition you may or may not have. And when you think about that definition, then it becomes intuitively obvious how involvement in all of the arts can be a benefit. And arguably that Lady Gaga concert that we did was historic. We broke several Guinness Book of World Records in terms of the most number of people reached in an online event, the most money raised for our Solidarity Fund to support countries, particularly underserved countries, and it was amazing. So, as part of our healing arts efforts, we have also engaged Hollywood and media companies in other ways. When the NBC show New Amsterdam, for instance, came back after their pandemic hiatus, their first show, they had a 10 to 15 minute montage of how healthcare workers on the front line dealt with the pandemic. And I actually found that clip on YouTube and posted it on the WHO intranet, and it went to all of our offices around the world. And we got back this flood of appreciation of, oh my God, we've been recognized. And I sent a note of appreciation to the producers. They invited me into the writer's room, and we began to have this dialogue about how health shows on television could be about more than just the mystery disease of the week. They can actually get to the root causes, economic, social, the other determinants of ill health in a community, and also what it means to be healthy. It's not just the absence of disease. It's thriving. It's finding those moments of joy. And it was a beautiful dialogue that resulted in a couple of events with the cast, with the producers, with WHO technical officers to have an honest conversation and to reach more people. I think in terms of our engagement, we've also worked with Netflix, with HBO Max. I myself have brought storytelling on global health issues to the Warner Brothers studios, to media groups around the world, and beyond Hollywood, working with opera companies, dance companies, etc. But I think perhaps the most engaging way we've worked with celebrities, one example comes to mind is our engagement with Renee Fleming, the opera soprano. She was more than just a social marketer of issues. She actually is an advocate of the healing power, the socially binding power of singing together, of music. And to her credit, it's been more than just her representing this aspect. It's been using her network to bring the NEA, to bring the NIH, to bring the Kennedy Center and other groups together and form this group called the Sound Health that actually looks at the science of why music has this beneficial effect, and to bring it to the youth who are suffering this pandemic of loneliness at the moment. And in fact, that's probably where I'd like to end my comments, is with a quote from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, who once said, "Loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the inability to express what matters most." And that's what entertainment does. That's what the arts do. And that expression can be words, it can be a movement through space, it could be a sound, it could be an image. And in the case of film and television, it can be all of those things. But it's more than just the messaging. It's that moment of deep aesthetic shared attention where our heartbeats begin to synchronize. We begin to imagine ourselves into the shoes of another person, to gain perspective and maybe break out of the established opinions and behaviors that we had gotten used to, and begin to see things in a different way. So it's more than just manipulating a population to do something that we think is better for them. It's about people individually harnessing their own creativity and becoming able to curate their own lives. Thank you.
That was beautifully said, Chris. Really kind of bringing together what I think what we communally feel, that we are not trying to impose other notions. We are trying to bring a community together, for that community to inspire and communicate with each other. I think from the entertainment to the social media, bringing that community to work towards common objectives of mental health, for sure. That's a very, very fundamental. We all became keenly aware of these issues during the lockdowns, perhaps uniquely in history.
We all felt it.
We all felt it. We all felt it. And all the people working with us and our families, I know it's been a really important experience in many, many ways. But I want to bring it back to the center of our discussion. And you have laid out, all of you, very many options and ideas and thoughts on how we could move and take advantage of this movement that has already multiple arms and multiple ways of doing things. And I want to bring it back to Helen, who gave us a very, very good introduction. And of course, Helen has been involved with the entertainment industry for years now, and she's a keen observer of how that entertainment industry works. So I wanted to kind of perhaps push you a little, Helen, to put out some daring ideas on how we take this forward in the next stage, to kind of move away from the one-offs and ad hoc, and maybe finding a grant here and there. And how do we establish more of a market for entertainment that is good and striving in moving forward? You can use whatever examples you want to bring, and I hope you can push it to think further.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, it's just fascinating to listen to all the panelists on this call. I've learned so much just on, during the last hour and a half. So I really thank you for sharing your stories and your data. It's absolutely fascinating. And again, thank you to the World Bank for setting this up with us. I mean, for me, honestly, this is a no-brainer. I don't understand why the entertainment world has not, done more, to be honest, because if we can use, shows and entertainment to further this cause, I just don't understand why we're not doing it, to be honest. We have how many television viewers? Over 5 billion, is it 5.4 billion television users, 5 billion smartphone users? I mean, it seems like, it's a perfect scenario for the entertainment world to go out and really make a change in this world, right? So, I mean, I've myself watched shows on, HBO had several shows built around, powerful storylines involving HIV and AIDS and, climate change. And I think those topics can really be included more. I think we can build on that. I think storytellers have to come out and just reimagine what stories they want to tell and really use the storytelling in a positive way and build on that and engage the audience. It's as we know, it's not a one-way street anymore. There has to be definitely communication and ideas. And I think there's just so many ideas that could be really have an impact on all our lives. So I'm actually a little bit puzzled why this is not done more, to be honest.
Reactions. Maybe Madeline, you want to react to that? Why doesn't it happen more organically? Or anybody else in the panel?
Well, I'm happy to just jump in. I mean, there's a social imperative, which we're talking about, but there is actually a very self-serving business imperative. And what we found from a study with Movio, which is a global theatrical marketing company, is that diverse audiences want to see diverse stories. And when you do have that scenario, look at, Black Panther is one of those, Wonder Woman is one of them, Ms. Marvel is one of them. You will be rewarded at the box office. We did our own, we called the Gina benchmark report, where female-centric content generated 55% more at the box office over a 10-year period, and diverse content generated the most money. So I think, although that may be slower, it's being really recognized that when you can tell, diverse stories, will be rewarded for that. And that model is also reflected in the TV industry. And I will give an example of a very successful partnership. It's not a program that we're doing, but we're friends with them. So the Eleanor Crook Foundation created a program called Life Pack. And in a nutshell, when we talk about a crisis, and Sharon, Ms. Stone alluded to this, 50 million children are malnutritioned around the world. And so they created a program called Life Pack, where they partnered with gamers and gaming companies. And by embedding kind of in-app game purchases, which are like tokens and whatnot, as the consumers playing the game do that, that generates not only funds, but the distribution for this ready-to-use therapeutic food. It's like a peanut butter base that gets immediately, distributed. And they did a very successful partnership with SpongeBob, Krusty Bake Off, where it was like a 56%, activation. So that's a beautiful example of public-private entertainment coming together to really foster something that can address a world problem.
I would just add, on the research side, and I'm been writing a book which is coming out next year called Good Influence, which part of it is to give some of the lessons we've learned and we know as an agency to as many people as they can, as want it, to show how to do this. And I think part of it's knowledge, part of it's confidence. But the research for the industry shows that consumers, especially millennials and Gen Z, they want to work for companies that do good. They want to buy products from companies that do good. It is a competitive advantage in the marketplace, apart from you should do it because it's the right thing to do good. And, one of the companies that combines that is Participant Media, who I work with on their music side. They did various documentaries like RBG or American Factory, and also, narrative films like Green Book. They have commercial results by wrapping, as I said before, these serious subjects in entertaining properties. So I think it's definitely viable, even if it's not, doesn't have to be on the nose, as they say in the entertainment industry. And one of the areas my team are looking at with me is actually setting up some sort of a knowledge base. We call this area cause influence. It's kind of a derivative of cause marketing, where it's the use of popular culture for social change. And we're looking at setting up this knowledge base, and maybe we can partner with some of the folk here to offer this as kind of capacity building for the entertainment industry. So I think there's a lot that we can do, and I think it is moving forward.
I'm hearing financial incentives. I'm hearing knowledge and capacity building. Maher, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think we have to recognize that there's actually a lot being done. Maybe not enough. Maybe we always want more. But also they are private sector. They are also in it for the business. And this is some of the interactions that I referred to, is how much is this going to make me in the box office? And as Paul showed, the research shows actually that being more will give you diverse productions, and other Madeline mentioned that, are more profitable, and there is a market for that. Sometimes it's profit or the bottom line, but also sometimes it's political expediency. I mentioned the revolution. Actually, we had worked with the production, with the talent, to produce public service announcements with the talent in the show on climate change. simple campaigns about, again, behavioral change. And they were supposed to go live on the 17th of December on the Sci-Fi channel. Elections took place in 2016, and a new president was elected, and an executive decided this is, there's going to be a change in the administration, and their view on climate change is going to be different. So they actually pulled off the PSAs from being broadcast on the 17th of December. Again, it's a decision by an executive because of political expediency, thinking, oh, this might not put me in the right place with the new administration. And that happens probably in other parts of the world in different ways. But a lot has been, we worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, who's a UN Messenger of Peace, on Before the Flood, the documentary on climate change that he did. And we also were supportive of, Don't Look Up. So there are some productions, but I think it has to look really natural, and the issue and how they bring it in needs to fit with the storyline and to be authentic. And this is why we say we have many stories in the UN. So we tell them, come to us, we can facilitate the stories and connections. We don't want our emblem. Actually, that's problematic. The UN name and emblem, when they appear, we have to get legal agreements. So it's about the story. It's about changing the reality. The world is facing multiple crises at the same time. We need all to get together, whether entertainment, whether it's music, whether it's film, television, whether it's advertising. And most recently, we're trying to work with football as well. We just, the world of football, come to the SDGs.
Well, particularly issues like vaccinations and climate change, where we need concerted action and coordinated action across all countries and all populations. These are places where social media and entertainment media can really add a lot to the bottom line, kind of motivating change at the same time by all the actors involved. Edwin, you have your hands up, please.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to emphasize the point about collective action. And the reason why that is important is that at the individual level, talent, celebrities, storytellers may not find it expedient, may not find it profitable, or they don't have the knowledge, or they haven't really gotten the information about how this can help their brand. But I do think that if we have, like the HFPA, we have such kind of associations of entertainers where they come together and collectively decide that this is something we need to do because we know the influence that we wield over populations in terms of how we help to change or catalyze change in a particular way, even negative changes. So they're the trailers, they basically trail the blaze for all kinds of things. So if we are able to get this kind of collective to also think about the positive impact that they can have in terms of not just the content of what they do, but even the way they portray some kind of culture and norms, right? Especially talking about the things that Madeleine talked about, the level of consciousness that we cannot perpetuate existing stereotypes unless to be doing that, we have to be deliberate. And as such, at that collective level, take a decision such that script writers and actors and actresses can at least have that as a kind of indicator to say, are you perpetuating some stereotypes that have negative consequences by this story, and then be more conscious of that. So I think collective action is important. Political will is key on the terms of those who hold the power on the political side, but in terms of those who are really producing on the supply side itself, collective action, I think, has not really taken place. And that's why this kind of forum will be important. If we recognize those who are doing great work, and call them and celebrate them when they do great work, that can incentivize others to also come into this way. I just wanted to put that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. In fact, if Helen allows me, I'm going to put her on the spot on this, because our excitement about having the Hollywood Foreign Press Association with us today and for the future is really changing those incentives at the market level, kind of encouraging and rewarding behavior and content and portrayals in entertainment that help us move in the right direction. So So I'm going to ask Ellen to comment on that, and see how do we move those incentives forward. There are many actors, but you kind of form a little bit of an umbrella, so to speak, for that market.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ariana. No, I think, because our membership is so diverse and we come from 55 different countries and hopefully from, many more countries in the future as we're adding more members to our organization, I think we have a very good perspective on what is going on in the world and the cultural beat on really the entertainment world around everywhere. So, our members have historically awarded, people that other award shows haven't. So, especially people like, for example, Guillermo del Toro, or just this year we awarded Squid Game. So, and those are things that I think we're seeing very much our organization is pointing out. The world has grown. We are very proud of being trailblazers when it comes to finding hidden gems and talent from around the world. And, I think in that way we can introduce, new talent to the world and also see how important it is to have this talent speak out about certain issues. I think this is for us foreigners especially important, and as the world grows more and more. So this is a perfect fit for the Golden Globes.
Thank you, Helen. Christopher?
Yeah, thanks, Ariana. Just a short word that, we all know that the private sector always has this creative tension between, on the one hand, the profit incentive making it risk averse in certain areas, but also the profit incentive drives it to take risks. One of the arguments that I make to different media companies around the world about global health issues is that these are untold stories. This is new content. This is a gold mine that hasn't been tapped, and I think, as we've seen with some of the streaming services out there, Squid Game was mentioned, but there are also Lupin, the French adventure show, was #1 on Netflix around the world. You have an opportunity to not just look at diversity for its own sake, but new markets. And for me, as someone interested in public health and in the psychosocial impact of these things, I see it fundamentally as not just diversity, but actually being able to, again, put yourself into the shoes of someone in a totally different circumstance than you grew up in, and to look at that perspective. And as we've seen in the world today, with the wars that are happening, the conflicts, we concentrate so much on the differences and the antagonisms, because it does set off a reaction, the clickbait reaction, that the shock and anger reaction is what in the short term sells. But what we're talking about is something a little deeper, a little more sustained. It's the connection that we have with people, and that's actually a different part of the brain. That's rather than trying to manipulate people by getting them angry and making them feel fearful about each other, to start feeling that empathic connection with people who are different than ourselves, who look differently, who speak differently, who have different circumstances, and then in that connection realize, oh my God, the fundamental emotions are the same. We are one species, and that's a profound thing, I think.
Yeah, I think this is what Helen was getting to, kind of really opening up and exposing audiences to very different cultural realities and productions from all over the world. I have seen this with my own eyes through my own children, how excited they are watching Japanese productions in Japanese, changing the way they learn languages or appreciate different cultures, and really feeling quite close to some of these productions and then really enjoying a complete different set of entertainment. This is really, really exciting. You also open up the issue of empathy. And of course, we have seen an explosion in social media. So how do we use the social media effectively? I want to bring in Victor for his perspective on his work. Edwin, of course, has mentioned a lot on using social media. But Victor, what is your take on how do we leverage edutainment content in the context of advocacy campaigns delivered through social media? And what is the role you feel? We haven't talked a lot about apps other than in your own presentation, but I'm interested to hear about the role of those apps for longer term impacts.
Thanks, Ariana. Before I answer your questions, I wanted to make a quick comment of the previous conversation of what are the commercial incentives, right, for scaling up edutainment. And a good statistic is that as Netflix subscriptions are saturated in the US and other developed countries, subscription rates in developing countries are rapidly growing. So there's also that commercial angle of producing more diverse, more global stories that are being consumed in developing countries, major clients of Netflix and many other producers and distributors of entertainment media. To your question, you know, edutainment, that positive movie, documentary can hit the right notes for you to empathize towards other groups and change your attitude and behaviors in a positive manner. But sometimes you need reinforcers, right? Because ultimately you will go back to your community, to your own reality, right? So reinforcers are good to remind you about that connection you had with that character, right? With that storyline you saw. And there's some companies like Participant Media that have, they produce obviously Oscar-winning, Golden Globe-winning productions, but they also have an advocacy angle. So they have these social media campaigns aimed at influencing policy. They have some great examples in Mexico where they helped push some of the reforms around the labor markets for folks working in households. Now, that's great, you know, reinforcer messaging in social media. But for things like learning how to read, like we showed in our presentation, you need more than a punchy message. You need some learning tools. So literacy games, right, through learning by playing principles can be that interactive book that will teach kids how to read. The apps I showed, Feed the Monster and Global Digital Library, those are favorites of my children because they have these strong entertainment elements to it. But of course, smartphones are household assets at the end of the day. So we could be complementing a lot of our edutainment campaigns with apps targeting different household members, right? Mobile banking, right? That can allow women or small enterprises to do better business through mobile banking apps. Mental health apps, of course, all approved by international, national health bodies. I think it's another great opportunity. Coaches, virtual app, chatbot coaches can also be a good opportunity to explore, especially for populations that do not have access to traditional health resources. So I think there's a big power for using apps for long-term impacts. Thank you.
I actually see this as individual learning. It's a huge opportunities to completely tailor and customize learning to each individual user. This we have not really been able to do before. And you know, the example of these educational apps in native languages, I think it's extraordinary because the education systems have a real hard time teaching children in the legal language of a country when those children are coming in without knowing that language. So they have double barriers to overcome to actually become literate and numerate. And so these apps, I feel, are a wonderful solution to teaching children in their own language before they're asked to learn a foreign language, so to speak. So this is not only in education, but across the board, being very targeted for health issues and banking needs and mobile money. So these are really, really exciting developments that technology is enabling today. How do we scale it up? And how do we push for it? I think the World Bank and even our president is super interested in supporting these type of initiatives. But we need to create content. The content is the fundamental ingredient, not only the technology, but a high quality content. I think Paul wanted to come in. Paul?
Yes. This is super interesting. I want to talk a little bit about music, because I'm kind of, even though I do music for films, I really mute the music guy here a little bit. Music has an economy of scale that is much less than making a movie, and that an individual can do. I in my bedroom using GarageBand, and then I can make the song and I can push it out on the web. And I think, coming back to, I think what Chris was saying, music is an international language, and I think it has empathy and connections. And I remember when I was 18, I had my first kiss, and this song was playing, or Dire Straits was was a song when I got married, or Moneybag Yo last week was blah blah blah. So I think music, the use of music, whether it's in a visual medium like Green Book, where we were participant and ourselves saw the music, can be very, very, very meaningful. And I want to talk about one impactful one. And we've done stuff with Ziggy Marley, Angelique Kidjo, with videos for polio. But the rapper Logic did a song called 1-800, I think it was 273-8255 on suicide. And it was a huge hit. I mean, absolutely huge. It was a great song, and it resonated with a lot of young people. And the British Medical Journal research on that showed the suicide rates went down and calls into suicide prevention lines went up. And I just want to put a shout out there for music, because it's a cheap, creative way of reaching a lot of young people and desired audiences. And as Sharon said, just to finish it, as Sharon said, young people, whether it's on TikTok through, Louis Theroux's My Money Don't Jingle, 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 viral thing that just went crazy, influencers themselves have a position in society and can relay messages. We're just doing something for the National Trust, and Shonda Rhimes sending something out or has a big impact on a lot of people who follow her and feel trust and credibility with her. Plus, it's an easy and cheap way of distribution. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. What was your experience with that, Edwin? I meant to say Edwin, but Chris also, they managed to pull off the fundraising television concert with Lady Gaga, so you're welcome to comment as well. But I wanted to hear from Edwin what his experience was in the use of music in the One campaigns.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are several things. First of all, it's about the mood. Who are we targeting? Who are we trying to reach? And I think when we the first part in terms of we've used music in several campaigns. When we did what we call Do a Greek, it was a campaign to get attention to the viability of the agriculture sector as a business, not just as a development case. And we try to make agriculture sexy in that sense. And so we got the most popular singer at that time in Nigeria, the Banj, and about 19 other African artists together. And then we got them to do this coconut chocolate song, right? That went super viral. But we also combined that with a social media campaign saying, and worked with telcos to turn it into ringtones, and we went through the whole process to try to get the message that agriculture is viable. And that was in response to one, the underinvestment in agriculture sector across Africa, as well as the aging population of farmers who were there, to basically get young people to see agriculture as a sexy area, as a sector that can actually produce money. So in doing that, it was viral, and we saw the potential of using music to really gather public support, to the extent that the Nigerian government, appointed the band as the Nagropreneur ambassador, as it were, basically promoting young people in agribusiness. And again, of course, it ended up being on the World Bank's End Poverty campaign that also did concerts, all over the world. So that was one way of showcasing the power of musical talent in that sense, and using music to really, send messages across many populations. We also did one in 2015 called Strong Girl, where we were looking at, the role, the strength of a woman. And then the idea was the feminization of poverty and trying to put the face of, hey, we need to do better in terms of our gender campaign. And that itself, went super viral, with about 8 African artists coming together and using the song Strong Girl as a rallying call to talk about the power of the female gender. And then our latest work on music was in COVID, which I mentioned during my presentation, where we basically brought in about 10 African artists. The idea then was to just talk about the despair, people's anger, everything that came with COVID. It was a really depressing time. So the idea of that song was stand together, because together we can come out of this. And that went viral across the continent as well, because people, it was not preachy. It was not a way to get people to act in a particular way, but it was more of an encouragement. And then to get people to see that if we act together, if we follow the rules, we wash our hands, and we do all of those things, we can get out of it. So we've seen the power of music in mobilizing, basically. And these artists, these talents who already have their followers, when they feature in a song, their fan base are actually looking out for what they are bringing out, for what they are producing. And when they see such kind of collaborations, and they see their favorite artists talking about a specific issue, it becomes an issue of interest for them. And so what we've seen is that sometimes, I think the biggest challenge we've seen in that whole process is educating the talent themselves to be knowledgeable enough to talk with conviction. And that is the back end of the work that requires some investment, because they will not sing about things they don't know about, right? They won't talk with conviction if they're not fully aware of the implications of whatever they are saying. And so we do a lot of hand-holding, get them all of the briefings, get them the education to get them to be at par with what the people should be hearing. And then he's able to go out there, use his craft. We don't prescribe. So they use their own craft, their own style, their own genre to create the content based on the knowledge and the education we've given to them. And that we've seen that to be really quite effective in mobilizing and getting the right audience for the right issues.
Edwin, you seem to have read my mind, because my question was, my next question was going to be, do we worry about content in music as much as we worry about content in dramas? And now you've answered the question in terms of guiding and informing, but how do we think of that? I think is important. And Chris, earlier you mentioned kind of ethical concerns with the power of mass media manipulating values in societies. Is this a fair criticism of what we're doing? How do we address it? How do we think of this combined effort and still keep it true to its purpose, which is not to impose, but to
I think it's a real I think it's a real creative tension, honestly. There are times when there are messages that need to get out there to save lives. At the beginning of the pandemic, getting the message out there for proper hand sanitation before we had a vaccine, when the death rates and the hospital rates were soaring in the pandemic, that message had to get out there. People had to understand it. But I also think that part of the power of the arts isn't just telling people what to think or how to feel or how to behave, but empowering them to express what their authentic truth is, whatever that is. So I think there is a creative tension there. Part of what we're interested in on the research side at WHO isn't just showing that use of the arts or entertainment or media is effective at behavior modification, but why? What's happening biochemically? What's happening neurologically that has this effect? And it's obviously a complex question, but one of the things that I think is emerging is that if you try to explain somebody logically why they should do a certain thing with evidence, that gets processed in the frontal cortex of the brain, which is where we think, where our conscious mind is. But unfortunately, that's not where behavior is happening. That's not